What is going on, everyone? Jackson here from Vendetta Sports Media, and holy cow, it's been a hot minute since the courtroom has been in session, but we're finally back. The greatest comeback, don't call it a comeback, that you've ever seen. I'm joined today, first of all, by my co-host, if you could probably hear it, the Pacific Union Railroad, but also I'm joined by the Don himself, Trey. Trey, how are you doing today, man?
It's going. It's going. I guess NBA wise, living the life. No
Yeah,
complaints. No
yeah,
complaints
we'll,
in that area.
yeah, we'll.
Have I made an appearance on this show? I don't think I have, right?
I don't think I'd have to go back and look
I don't think I
if you
have.
have. I don't think you have. No, first time on the show.
Yeah,
Welcome.
you had the Dixter on. I know that.
I've had Chickster on quite a bit. I've had some other people on from other fan bases outside of Vendetta on here in the past. But we're finally here. We're finally making a comeback. This is going to be a mainstay now. Maximum effort with the NBA content.
Okay.
Second year full time teaching. Things are a little bit easier for me. It's harder
Are
in
they?
some ways,
Are
but
they easier teaching?
what?
Are they easier?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. There's less prep that I have to do. I have a
Okay.
couple of new classes that I'm teaching, but there's a couple of classes that I taught last year, so I have
Well,
all that material done.
I'm just more so saying you guys are getting fucked.
Oh,
Let's,
always.
let's be clear about that.
Always. We always are. That's
Yeah.
nothing new. That's just the life of a teacher. I mean,
But
you see Chickster, he's putting in 12-hour days every single day.
I know. I had no interest going down that path. But
Yeah, no. Hmm.
anyway. This is
Anyway.
this is your show, so I'm here. Let's do
Oh
it.
yeah. Well, no, because you already kind of mentioned it. You're living the life. You are a
Am I?
Celtic. Well, NBA wise, you said you're living the
Okay,
life,
sure.
and you also own a sports media company that's straight shotting to the moon and has some big
Okay.
stuff planned very
Yeah,
soon,
probably tomorrow.
probably
Well, by the
tomorrow.
time it's out, yeah.
Yeah, by the time this is out, that should be out. Also, if you see this, I did my civic duty today. I voted today.
Really?
Yes,
I'm sitting this one out.
I there's some stuff going on statewide that I wanted to vote for.
Okay.
So and
Yeah.
like county wise and everything. So
Trey's gonna be sitting this one out.
that's what I was more concerned about. And I get people wanting to sit out. It's crazy hours out there. But we're not here to talk politics. We're here for basketball. So again, Trey, as you alluded to, you're living the NBA life because you are a lifelong Boston Celtics fan. Not only did they win the NBA championship,
That's
but
actually not a true story though.
well, okay. You're a Celtics
I
fan though. You're a
so
Celtics fan though.
so when I was like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years old, I fucking loved Shaq. He was my favorite
Okay.
player. I loved Shaq. I didn't like
Hmm.
declare a team, but I loved everything about him. I didn't technically declare a team, but when Kobe sent him packing, it was like the Celtics are my team. Like I got fuck the Lakers. The Celtics are my team, and that's actually how it happened.
Well, that's fair. So then you got their what was it their '08 championship with the Big Three,
Yep.
and then of course this new iteration that has been to one before in the past, very recently, just a few years ago, lost to the Golden State Warriors, but then a bit of a retooling, and they came back. That Derek White trade probably is what put you guys over the top. I would and Peyton Pritchard, and just the natural growth.
I think it was the Drew Holiday trade that put him
Or
over
Drew
the top. To
Holiday,
be
yeah,
honest,
that too.
like if Milwaukee never makes that trade, I'm not convinced they win
That's true. No, it was the Xavier Tillman trade that, that won it.
it. Big
Shout out.
three. He had a big three in that one game against the Mavs. Huge three.
I know he did that for the Grizzlies
I'll
too.
tell you this about Tillman.
He's
I
a
think
dog.
fucking Garrett would cut his dick off to have Tillman in Denver. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I wish.
He's got to watch Sarge every night and Westbrook every night.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I think Garrett would do some unthinkable things just to have Tillman on his team.
Yeah, and we'll get to the Nuggets later on. But Trey, I want this little introduction here to be your time for the little old Celtics, as you always say. No one, they win the chip, and he's coming in here like everyone's doubting them and everything.
In fairness, I mean, a lot of people did doubt him. They wanted to break up Tatum and Brown. They tried to trade those guys 70 fucking times. You ask anybody. Now they'll pretend otherwise now that nobody will say it now. But I mean, 90% of NBA fans wanted those guys traded 700 fucking times.
Yeah. But anyway, this is
I'll
this
tell you that.
this is this is your gloating moment.
Well,
What
there's 800 avenues I can go down. It's a matter of what what particular avenue you want me to talk about.
Well, I mean, just whatever the one you feel strongest about. If you just want to say F you to everyone, you could do that too.
I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about. It starts with can Danny Ainge get some fucking respect? I mean, this guy nailed the draft. I mean, he wasn't perfect, but he nailed the fucking draft. I mean, you go back and look at those mock drafts. That's really when it started. They had the first pick in the draft, and everybody told them to take Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz, turn the card in for Markelle Fultz. I mean, nobody gives this guy credit. 90% of people would have just turned the card in for Markelle Fultz. No, he trades down. He gets another first round pick. He takes Tatum. I mean, you look at some of those mock drafts, the Jaylen Brown year, they had him going 10, 9, 8. Like, nobody had him as the third pick in the draft. Bill Simmons wanted to just fucking slit his throat for picking Jaylen. I mean, go look it up. Bill Simmons, he threw a fucking hissy fit that they took Jaylen Brown with the third pick in the draft. Trey was fine with it, but again, you'll never find anything on the Vendetta site criticizing any of those moves that Danny Ainge made. I just want to, I mean, first and foremost, nobody gives this fucking guy Danny Ainge any credit. He's the one that actually built this team. Let's just get that out of the way. Peyton Pritchard, that was his draft pick. I mean, even some of the draft picks that Stevens moved out, Ainge had to make those picks in order to have the asset to move out. Marcus Smart. I mean, they could have took Julius Randle. They could have took a lot of guys other than Marcus Smart. No, he sat there, and by the time they moved Marcus Smart, I mean, he's the only reason Porzingis is on the team. If they fuck that pickup, if Danny Ainge fucked that pickup, they don't have Porzingis. I mean, you can name 800 examples. Peyton Pritchard's a Danny Ainge pick. Robert Williams is a Danny Ainge pick. Robert Williams was a huge part of that Drew Holiday trade. So first and foremost, Danny Ainge. I mean, if this guy doesn't have a championship ring, I don't know if they gave one to him or not, but it's absolutely fucking criminal if he doesn't have one.
Well, I mean, he has a lot with the Celtics as a player, and then in 08. Do you give Brad Stevens any credit at all?
Yes.
Because he was the coach for what 7, 8 years before transitioning into the
and I
front
liked
office?
him as a coach. But it was pretty obvious by the end of it, like he's just not tough enough. Like we're watching the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Cincinnati Bengals every week. They're losing every single week because they're not tough. I mean, the biggest problem with the team was during those they kept coming up short, and he just couldn't get to him. And Missoula being a psychopath, he actually has been the perfect fit.
Oh, I love Missoula. I love his coach. He has the right
Unbelievable.
mentality.
Unbelievable.
You feel like you wouldn't get it from him. He looks very reserved, and I feel like I don't see him really talking or yelling that much on the sideline during Celtics games. But whatever he is doing, it's working. And
But
anytime there's a
again,
microphone in front of him, he drops an absolute bar.
now a lot of Celtics fans will just put Stevens on the pedestal and act like he's God. I don't think that's accurate. There's been a lot of mistakes on his end, but the number one thing that needs to be mentioned is Danny Ainge is the heart and soul of this team, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. And B, yes, I mean, Stevens did make some good moves, but like the first year of Missoula, to not give him a staff was insane. Like he was totally lost that first year. To not like get him a Vogel or to not get him anybody. They just said, well, he's the by the way, Will Hardy was the assistant coach. He takes the Utah job. Now, like Missoula went from he's the third guy to the head coach and then doesn't have a staff. Look totally like they literally flushed that season down the toilet. And I don't give a shit what anybody says. The fact that Brad Stevens should be held accountable for that season. Like the only reason why they lost to the Heat in that series was they were totally outcoached. And now we realize that Missoula knows what he's doing, but holy hell, to not give him a staff that first year was insane.
Yeah. Well, what now that he does have a staff, first and foremost, and now that we've
Like
moved,
Sam Cassell deserves a lot of credit. Sam Cassell has been awesome.
yes, but transitioning now into this season, I know it's very young. They've played, I think, 3 games so far at the point of recording.
And by the way, like, can I mention this one thing first?
Yeah.
Like we talk about all these moves that Stevens made. I mean, Ime Udoka was the number one reason why Derek White's on the team. Like, let's just call it how it is. He was assistant coach for the Spurs. He rode for that fucking guy hard. I don't know if they land that trade without Ime Udoka, which is the most hilarious part about the fucking shamrocks that have come up on Stevens' ass. They make that Brogdon trade. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That Brogdon trade was horrible. I mean, you can't argue it. Who's better right now, Neesmith or Brogdon? Who's better?
Probably Neesmith, I'd say.
And that's without the draft picks they gave up in that deal. But without the Brogdon salary, they can't make the holiday trade, which is the craziest part about the NBA is sometimes the wrong decision can turn out to be the right decision. I mean, you go back to that Raptors trade with DeMar DeRozan. They should have never extended him, but they needed his money to make the Kawhi trade.
Yeah. You're right.
That's the NBA.
You're right. But transitioning now to the start for the Celtics this season, they have not missed a beat. If anything, they look better than what they did.
Which is what I expected.
And that's still, like, Porzingis is out. He was injured during the Mavs series in the finals. Gets surgery in the offseason, is still recovering from it. They're missing a key component of their core to try and establish a dynasty. And they are hitting on every cylinder.
I know you guys think I'm insane, but this is what I've been trying to warn you guys the entire time. This team, what people don't understand is they are perfectly built for what the CBA allows you to do, except they've broken all of the rules before it was even in place. So now everybody's trying to play catch up for a team that they can't even catch up because they're broken the rules before the rules are in place. I mean, that's the truth of what this team is. They got if you're building a team from scratch with these new rules, I mean, you want two wings that can play both sides of the floor. Check. They are literally the perfect modern basketball team. They have two guards that not only are unselfish, they defend incredibly well. I mean, does anybody block shots better than Derek White at the guard position? They're 5-man. I mean, it's hard to find centers that can shoot threes. I mean, half the time, the Milwaukee Bucks, they got Brook Lopez out there shooting threes, and he stinks at it. And they still try to do it anyway because you still got to try to catch this team somehow. No, they got Porzingis. But this team is so good that they don't even need Porzingis. The gap between good and great is hard to determine. They are historically great when Porzingis is out there. They're just a great team when he's not out there.
Well, I mean, opening night, they were nearly an historic team because they tied the record for threes in a single game. They then proceeded to go 0 of 13 to try to beat
well, a lot of the starters were pulled then, too.
And a lot of the starters were pulled.
You had Jordan Walsh fucking pulling up.
Yeah, and you could tell their heart really wasn't in it. They were just kind of jacking up threes and trying to get the record, and but it is what it is. The Celtics are a very scary team. They are my pick to win, to repeat. I think last year, if I could remember correctly, I still had them getting to the finals. I think I had the Nuggets winning in the finals. Obviously, that did not happen, and we'll talk about the Nuggets here in a little bit. I got to rant about my team first, too. But no, I have the Celtics repeating because they just seem nearly impossible.
Hey, if you go and look at all those articles from the site, pull up anyone that you want. Trey predicted him to win the title. Check. I picked him to win it again. I think they're going to do it. I mean, what's the flaw in this team?
What's crazy to me too is that they still seem so hungry so early on in the season. That is what is amazing to me. There are teams that have not come close to sniffing a championship that are already starting to rest players. I'm looking at you, Memphis Grizzlies. But the Celtics last night, so the night before recording this, Jaylen Brown played 38 minutes. They ran an 8-man rotation.
And he plays every fucking game.
I know. It blows my mind when other teams with superstars don't try to copy what the Celtics are doing in an essence where it's an 82-game season. You want to early on establish the tone, the momentum. Brown's going to get his rest. Tatum's going to get his rest at some point. But these early parts of the season, they're so important in getting in a rhythm. and they are so hungry because it's like the complete opposite. Sometimes you see teams win and they just kind of check out. They don't really care about it anymore. The Celtics, though, somehow have come out with a bigger drive to win a championship this year than they did last year when they won the championship.
I go back to the Brad Stevens line all the time. I think it's the smartest thing he ever said. We want players who are self-aware. It's every player on the fucking team. I mean, every player on the team. Like the role that Drew Holiday fills. Is there 5 guys in the league that would be able to do what he does? I mean, it's incredible. He doesn't bitch ever. He could be shooting the ball 20 times. He never complains. I mean, he's out there guarding Embiid. I mean, he was out there guarding Karl Anthony Towns in the first. I mean, what point guard's doing that? I mean, their whole team is self-aware. Their whole team defends. Their whole team is hungry. Their whole team gives a shit. Their whole team plays every fucking night. Their whole team. I mean, name whoever you want. Jaylen Brown. I mean, this guy is pissed off all the time. He constantly pissed off. I mean, have you seen some of the workout pool videos he's doing underwater? Just insane. I mean, Tatum, he's not as tough as Brown is, but I mean, he's pissed off from this Olympics thing. I mean, Derek White, he was a D2 player. I mean, those guys constantly overlooked. You can't put a price tag on the self-awareness that this team has. I mean, it's the same reason why Westbrook keeps sucking and Trey, like, ooh, the Hawks can't do anything. And Embiid's not a threat. He's not self-aware. That's the number one quality with this team.
Yeah, and what makes them more dangerous than just being a team that's self-aware? It's a team that's self-aware and it's worked.
I mean, they're perfectly constructed. Everybody plays defense. Everybody can shoot threes. Nobody's selfish. And they have a clear pecking order. Whether you want to say Brown or Tatum is the number one, that's fine. But the way the CBA is constructed is you got 2 max guys. No question who the 2 max guys are. Everything funnels around them.
Yeah. All right, so we'll transition now. That was a great talk about the Celtics again. I think most everyone on the site, I think, is in agreement with the Celtics being the easy pick for
They weren't last year, though.
They weren't last year.
They weren't last year, and I took a lot of shit for saying this team was way better than the 08 team. And Chickster ran his fucking mouth like he does every fucking week. Oh, how can you say that? It's too early. Oh, they haven't fucking won anything yet. I mean, this team's historically good.
No, I think by the time we get to
they might win 70
April,
games.
whatever.
It's a matter of if they have the foot on the gas, but they might.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know if teams will necessarily care about that anymore, especially after the Warriors did set.
I'm just saying, if there was a way that we could put a simulation of them versus the KD Warriors, they'd have a fucking chance.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that about any other team since those KD Warriors teams.
But we're going to transition from talking to your team to talking my team, because
is this your therapy session that you need?
It is a little bit of a therapy session, yes, but it's also a realization, because it's clear to me when I look at my organization, the franchise that I root for, and I look at someone like the Celtics. You talked about how Mazzulla is the guy that has that it factor. That Brad Stevens wasn't a bad coach. He was a good coach. He was a really good coach. He's a really good coach. Won a lot of games, won a lot of playoff series. He just couldn't ever get over the hump. He made it three times, right, to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I think it was more than that, actually.
Maybe more. It was
like they were there every fucking year.
Yeah, or right up.
They were there. Tatum's rookie year, they were there.
Yeah. So, and with Memphis right now, I'm officially out on Taylor Jenkins as the head coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think a coaching change is desperate, needs to be made. And people may say that's crazy talk after 4 games. Trust me, it's not been 4 games. It's been 4 years. They played the Chicago Bulls last night, and they had a 20-point lead in the second quarter. Utterly collapsed by the time the game ends. They lose to the Bulls, who are probably a 30 to 33 win team at best. Yes, they were without Ja Morant, Yes, they're without two key rotational players, but you're up 20 points. There's no excuse for what happened last night. And it just comes down to bad coaching. Jake LaRavia, while he had a good game last night, played over 30 minutes. Jaren Jackson Jr. played 24 minutes.
He was out though. It was his first game back, right? Was that like
No,
part of the plan?
this was his second game.
Okay.
The second game back. He played more in his first game than he did his second game.
Okay.
And
just double checking that because I picked him in fantasy and I know he missed the first.
Yeah, he missed the first two games, but he had a day's rest in between. And I'm starting to get worried about some of these, like the coaching staff or whatever, because Ja sort of admitted that in the Orlando game, where they beat a really good Orlando team, I think a lot of us here are very high on the Orlando Magic being good in the Eastern Conference this year.
It's the only over-under I took. Magic over. It's the only one I bet.
There you go, because they're probably going to beat it, whatever it was. What was it when you bet?
47.5, I think.
Yeah, I don't hate that. But he basically, Ja basically admitted that Grizz Twitter bullied the organization into him playing in the home opener. And then he sits against the Bulls, and then he's listed questionable for tomorrow night's game. What are we doing?
Well, you watch the Grizzlies more than I, so I'm sure you would answer this question a lot better. But I come back to this same question with everything. These teams need to be way more creative in their hiring process. Like, you look at JJ Redick right now. I mean, the Lakers are way better.
Oh, yeah.
They're way better.
Yeah, you see some of the offensive sets that they've been running out there? It's crazy.
Way better. These teams, they do the same shit over and over and over again, and they expect a different result. They say, oh, well, he was an assistant for X, Y, and Z, and this was his offensive. They stare at their fucking chart, and, oh, well, he was an assistant here, so let's hire him. And none of these guys have a fucking spine. I mean, they run through the same coaches every fucking time. I mean, the teams that are bold and brave about this shit usually are the ones who are rewarded in the end.
Yeah. I'm trying to look up the stat. I should have looked it up earlier. But for those that don't know,
I couldn't tell you what Taylor Jenkins is running in the second quarter of his timeouts. You know, I don't
know. No, but I'll tell you what he's doing. First of all, he has very odd rotations. That's been a problem for 6 years now. Well, finally, in the 6th year is when people are kind of like his rotations are looking better. His problem is always when the other team gets on a run, he sticks too much. And I'll tell you why. He's from the Budenholzer coaching tree.
Those guys never adjust.
Exactly. He's been with Budenholzer since the Atlanta Hawks, all the way back then. And he was with Mike for most of his tenure in Milwaukee.
I don't think Budenholzer's made an adjustment in 12 years.
No, it's why he's not coaching anymore.
Well, he's got the Suns.
Right, he's got the Suns now.
Yeah.
But the one adjustment Budenholzer made, and it's the problem that Jenkins has, is that he doesn't play his stars. He hardly plays them. He's got the opposite problem of a Tom Thibodeau. Thibodeau plays his stars way too much.
Yeah.
Josh Hart's playing 40-plus minutes a night. Okay? Like, kudos to Josh Hart for being able to play 40 minutes a night, but that's crazy. Crazy talk. Oh, I love Josh Hart. I would love a Josh Hart on my team. Give me Josh Hart all the time. But I'm trying to find what Ja's career, like...
I mean, in fairness, though, some of this is like the front office has made a lot of draft picks. I mean, you got a lot of draft picks and you got to find out what you got. And sometimes those guys aren't ready to play. And then you're sitting there like, well, we got to, I mean, it's the same thing what the Colts are dealing with right now with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Switchboards.
They got to play him, but he's not ready to play. and then you suffer the consequences because it's a win-loss league.
So I've looked it up. Ja Morant, his career average for minutes played per game is right at 32 minutes. But there are some instances where he's playing around 30 minutes a game. And what Jenkins does is he's got, and you can see him holding it on the sideline. It's this little laminated piece
Oh,
of
I
paper.
love those. Spin the records.
Yeah. Well, what he does though is that there's no adjusting from it. That is his gospel that he sticks to. The
Yeah,
other
you're
team,
checking shit off.
yeah. Well,
It's Doug Peterson every Sunday checking off the play sheet.
it could be. It's like in last night's game. It could be on a. You're up 20-0, or not 20-0, but you're on this massive run. You're up 20 points, and the Bulls make a push, and then he calls a timeout, and it's like a back and forth. The Bulls are getting momentum. He takes his guys out, puts in bench guys, but the other team's going to keep Zach LaVine in. And then Zach LaVine starts hitting threes. He starts getting open for three. The perimeter defense for Memphis has always been.
Or Smart. Smart's supposed to be playing defense.
Dude, he is out of shape. I will admit we lost that trade. 100%. We lost that trade. And we lost Tyus Jones in the trade, and we basically have another Tyus Jones and Scottie Pippen Jr., but the Grizzlies lost that trade because for the amount of money that we have, Jay Huff, who's been phenomenal through 4 games, he's been an excellent addition, but then Vince Williams Jr. and G.G. Jackson, 2 young guys who are going to be part of the core for a very long time, Scottie Pippen Jr., and like maybe I think one other guy, but at least a minimum of those 4 key rotational pieces in probably what's going to be an 8 to 9 man rotation come the playoffs, and they will be in it. They're making less money combined than what Marcus Smart is making. Marcus Smart is making north of $20 million this season. He went 0 for 10 from 3 in a game last night that ended up being decided by 3 points.
He's always been a problem from 3, and he always loves to take them. The only reason why I was so upset about the trade was Brogdon was still on the team at the time. That's the only reason why I was so upset about the trade, is that they moved out Smart and had Brogdon. But the Holiday thing, but they fell into shit.
And my issue with Jenkins also is I don't think he's tough enough to get the best out of the players. I think he's become too buddy-buddy with the players, and the players love him for that, but
it never works.
He's not pushing them.
The take the kids to Dairy Queen vibes never work. I mean, look at our favorite Chicksters dealing with this right now. Antonio Pierce. Raiders got hot. All the players loved him. And then what? He's no longer the substitute teacher, and now they hate him.
Mm-hmm. But now, as far as
that was the case for the Grizzlies, right? It looked like they had such positive vibes when they were all young. It was, hey, take the kids to Dairy Queen. We're all having fun out there. We're all learning and growing. And then he's not the substitute teacher anymore. And
yeah, I think it's just one of those scenarios where Jenkins is a good coach. He's just an Ivy League educated, analytics driven guy. That's what he is.
I hate those people.
That's just what he is.
Can't stand those people. I'm dealing with the same thing with the Red Sox right now.
Yeah, and it's just people that aren't. They stay too close to their spreadsheets. They stay too tightly to what the analytics tell them for what they do in this situation. Where when you realize that your guys
and there's no accountability.
In last night's game, when the Bulls are making a push and you see that, I mean, he barely plays his guys over 30 minutes. Like last night was some of the most I've seen Desmond Bane play, and I think he played like 32, 33 minutes. And Desmond Bane had 7 threes in the first half.
Those guys aren't old either.
No, they should be able to play. I do not understand what is going on. And their offense looks better this year. I will say that. But the defense is the same, and it starts with coaching.
Hey, you yelled at me for making them a 7 seed.
No, I still think they're a 4 seed, at least.
Okay. We'll find out.
I still think they're 4 seed. I said 4 or 5 seed was their lowest.
Okay.
But as far as championship contention, I don't believe that Taylor Jenkins is going to be the guy that gets them to it. And I think he should 100% be on the hot seat And if the Grizzlies don't make it to the Western Conference Finals, he should be out.
No, that's a high bar.
I-
They haven't been there since how long? Randolph got him 1 year, right?
Yeah, Randolph got him there 1 year.
Okay.
That's when Zebo was like the number one guy on the team. And
Okay.
a young Marcus Hall and a young Mike Conley. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. No, but I think the talent is there for them to get to a Western Conference Finals, depending on obviously your seeding and who you're playing. I think they can win a first round. If they have a higher seed, they can win against a lower seed. I think that they could win the next series in a 7-game series. And this is, again, assuming that they're fully healthy. But I just don't know if Jenkins is the guy.
I love Jaren Jackson. I'm a big fan of his.
Oh, yeah.
That counts for anything.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of his, too. He is a defensive player of the year. Now, I will say this, that despite the rough start for the Grizzlies, there is, some hope, at least, because there are guys that are injured. They're not 100% yet. Luke Kennard, didn't mention him. He's injured and everything, although he's kind of a traffic cone on defense, so I don't know how that's going to go. But there is a team that is supposed to be competing that's kind of struggled through 3 games. You can call this an overreaction or whatever. They're 1-2, but they have a severely big problem, and it's that if their superstar is not 100% perfect, then they are probably going to lose the game. And we're talking about them because they just won the championship 2 years ago, the Denver Nuggets.
They're losing right now to Brooklyn.
They are losing right now to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
What's the score right now?
52-44 second quarter.
52-44 second quarter. So see, let me bring up those stats real quickly. This is perfect. This is the perfect time.
We don't need to discuss the game. Who knows when this is going to be uploaded? I mean,
I know that, but I'm just like it's just like the perfect thing to mention right now is that they're down to Brooklyn when this is supposed to be a team that
why is anybody surprised? I had them as a 5 seed.
They may not finish as a 5 seed.
I
if
know.
they're playing like this.
I know.
That's how Memphis gets up there.
Why is anybody surprised? This is what you get when you put Westbrook on your team. You're asking to lose. And Garrett has complained about Sarge too, which he's been a problem as well. But this is what you get when you sign up for Westbrook. He automatically makes your team worse. It's not an argument. I mean, we're talking about a team that 2 years ago they won a title, and then last year they were still a really good team. I mean, last year they were still really good. Now they're terrible. I mean, this is not an accident. We're talking about a guy. I mean, it's been 7 different teams in 8 years. Is that the stat, or is it six teams in 7 years, or something like that?
It's like 6, 7, 6 and 8, something like that.
I mean, every team that gets this guy, they can't fucking wait to get rid of him. I mean, the idea that Jokic said, I want this guy. I mean, have you been watching the games? Do you pay attention? Do you look at I mean, how idiotic could you be to want this guy in your team? I don't care what anybody says. This Calvin Booth guy, he stinks. I mean, he inherited Jokic. It's not like he picked Jokic. So let's stop pretending like he deserves any credit for that championship team. What's that guy accomplished? I mean, what's he gotten right? What's he gotten right?
Not a lot, because he's let some key pieces from that championship team walk. They've walked.
Sure.
They've gone somewhere else. How do you win a championship and first of all don't even come close to offering somebody? Like, I get it. Like, let's take KCP.
Bruce Brown. They had no choice, which
is yes. That sucks, but they were still good last year.
Yeah.
Because they did okay enough in the draft and still had 95% of that championship team together.
But he literally, how many second round picks did he give away just to get rid of Reggie Jackson? And then he said, you know what I need? I need a worse Reggie Jackson than Westbrook. I mean, that's what he did.
Yeah, and then
pull up that Reggie Jackson trade. How many second round picks did he get rid of just to get rid of Reggie Jackson?
One sec, let's look this
and
up.
Then he gave up more picks for Deron Holmes, who's not even playing.
It's pretty rough. So let's see. 3 second round picks. They got cash considerations. They gave up ready.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
They
So
got
got rid. I mean, those second round picks. You can't. I mean, this is a team that's way over the cap. I mean, they need every ounce of assets they can to add to the team. Instead, they get rid of draft picks just to get rid of Reggie Jackson and then bring a replica of him on the team who's making their team worse.
Yeah. I would actually argue that if you're in the bottom half of the first round, those second round picks are just as valuable as those picks. And the more second round picks you get, like, honestly, I'd rather have 2 to 3 picks in between picks 40 and 55 than one pick at like pick 25.
The only thing he's gotten right is Julian Strother. That pick will probably turn out all right for him. Other than that, what's he gotten right? Which he wouldn't have been on Denver's team if I was running the Celtics, because Jordan Walsh would have never been my fucking pick. But other than that, if I was in the Celtics front office, he wouldn't have even been on Denver's team.
Oh, that's funny. But just looking at the construction of their team right now, and I think the person that said it best about the roster construction of the Nuggets was Jokic. He talked about it after their second game when they started 0-2. He says that they only have 2 shooters on the team.
How about a stat? Jokic has never played with an All-NBA player.
That's crazy.
Never.
That's crazy. That's
Isn't
why
that a little disrespectful.
Well, yeah. That's why he's the best player in the NBA. He won a
championship.
This
generational talent, you've done nothing.
Well, I mean, I guess they thought that Jamal Murray was going to turn into that, and it looked like that after like the bubble series, and then he got hurt, and then he came back, and then he started playing well again. But now
he sucked for Team Canada, and
then he's having an okay.
If they had any balls, they would have taken Porter Jr.'s contract or Aaron Gordon's contract and turned it into 3 guys who can shoot.
Yeah, but. And I guess the idea, because Porter is one of their shooters, but this is so funny. I've got a good friend that is a Nuggets fan, not just like, you know, Garrett here on the site, but like a friend outside of.
He's like watching a guy drive 90 miles an hour, and then sometimes he crashes and sometimes he doesn't.
Michael Porter Jr. or Garrett?
Yeah, Porter Jr.
Yeah, no, we laugh because we went to Memphis, me and some of my other buddies. We all went to Memphis together to watch the Nuggets play, and it was Michael Porter Jr.'s rookie season, like after he'd like recovered from his back and everything. The guy looked like he didn't know how to play basketball.
Oh, he's come a long way. There's no doubt about that. When he first came into the league, he couldn't defend anybody.
Oh, I will say this. One of the biggest things that I could not believe that people were doing, and like Doris Burke was one of the biggest ones of this for ESPN. In the bubble, they were comparing him to Kevin Durant. That was his comp, and that was his ceiling. Everyone's like, "It's the next KD. It's the next KD."
No,
if
they had Kevin Durant on the team, they'd be a 1 seed.
They probably would have won a second championship by now if they had KD.
I mean, if they had Kevin Durant on their team, they would not be scared of Gobert.
They would have lost to Gobert.
You can't. I mean, you can't even make up how embarrassing being scared of Gobert is. I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah, I know, and it's just I'm looking at the roster right now. There are no shooters on this team.
No.
You're gonna run Jokic out of town, which he just signed a big contract with them again, so he may just retire.
Yeah, he might go play with his horsies, right? He loves his horsies.
Hey, he's got his millions, and he's got his championship, and he's got a couple MVPs. He's already a Hall of Famer. He might not even show up to his own Hall of Fame ceremony. He may just be in Serbia, and then it's just.
Then maybe you disagree with this, but the number one problem with that team is Westbrook shooting like 20%.
Yeah, no, I mean Westbrook. There's a specific role that Westbrook would have.
He should never have a role. He should be playing in China. He's got way more value playing in China. People in China would pay to go watch him. No question.
For those of you that don't know, Trey is probably the biggest Westbrook hater on the planet.
I mean, it's ridiculous. They gave this guy an MVP award for being a selfish prick. Like, what are we doing? They gave this guy an MVP award for having the lowest shooting percentage of his own team. That's a real stat. On that Thunder team, he had the worst shooting percentage on his own team, and they gave him the MVP award for being a 7 seed.
Man, that's so.
How do you give the MVP award to anybody on a 7 seed?
Because it was the
Like,
first.
forget about the player. Forget about what he did. Forget about any of that. How do you give the MVP award to a guy who was a 7 seed?
Because, and this is just the mindset of the voters at the time, because I remember all of this happening, is they voted for him to get MVP because he was the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double in a season.
That MVP award season would be the equivalent of giving the MVP to Cam Thomas right now. There ain't no difference. I mean, Cam Thomas is up there. He's jacking up shots every night, and good for him. You know, I mean, it's a tanking Nets team. Who cares if Cam Thomas is jacking up 30 shots a night? But it ain't no difference in what Westbrook was doing.
All right. So, which I will say this also about the Westbrook hate. There was a graphic that was out maybe like 2 or 3 years ago that showed one state, and it just so happened to be the state that Trey lived in. As Westbrook is like the most hated player in that state was Westbrook. 100% Trey carried the entire state.
I'm confident that I did that.
Like millions of people, and one man pushes it towards him.
I'm 100% convinced that the Chicago Bears lost on that Hail Mary play because I put that juju on him. I'm convinced of it. In fact, all
the Bears fans arguing with you on Twitter, putting bad karma into the air.
I was in the city that it happened to too. That play, I was in the city that it happened to him. I'm convinced the Chicago Bears suffered that disastrous Hail Mary because of me. I've changed the world, Jackson Law. But seriously, though, has anything aged more in my favor on this Westbrook thing? How can you even argue it anymore?
No, I mean, and again, I don't know how or why he's on a roster. I mean, I get why.
He should be. There's no reason why he's on a roster.
I get why he's on a roster, but I don't want him on my roster right now.
How could you? I mean, and it goes back to that self-awareness line. He's never had it. Never had it.
If he could be self-aware, he still has a physical
skill
set.
Don't got it.
I know he don't. I'm just saying that if he did have it, if he had the self-awareness, because remember they talked about it for the 2 seasons that he was on the Lakers about how they were going to share the rock and whose role was going to be. That fell apart instantly.
That's another team. Lakers win a title. They trade for Westbrook. Suck. I mean, every fucking team he goes to, they're worse.
Yeah, well, that's because he's an old school point guard that can't shoot the three, and his athleticism, I guess, is still sort of.
How about remember that trade the Thunder made with the Rockets? That Oklahoma City team wanted to lose in the worst way. They get rid of Westbrook and they're in the playoffs.
It's because they had your boy Chris Paul.
I know.
All right, so we're going to close with our last segment here. We're through one complete week of the NBA season. Most teams haven't even played 4 games yet. But we work in sports media, so we're going to do what sports media heads do, and that's completely overreact and blow things out of proportion in an effort to try to get clicks. JK. But Trey,
I thought you had some kind of segment on here where you didn't your last segment used to be you some kind of court is adjourned.
Yeah. No, I've got to bring that. I got to bring that back. I do got to bring that back, but it's a good shtick. It's a good
anyway.
Gimmick, but yeah, we'll bring that back in the future and everything. I got to get more of an NBA season going so I can see what people's takes are through the year and then start to challenge those.
Oh, the Chicago Bear fans won't step up to the plate. So,
but anyway, Trey, I want to know, do you have anything you want to overreact to, either positive or negative? Let's hear it.
Paulo Banchero. I mean, top 5?
Is it
top 10?
Ooh, top 5.
I mean, he's fucking good. And we had that fantasy basketball draft, first time I ever did it. I mean, I know you're not going to believe me, but I almost picked him in the first round. I was like, you know what? I can't do it. Like, Giannis is sitting there. I have to hope and pray that I get him with my next pick. And thank God he fell to me. Like, he's good. That fucker's good. Like he is blue chip, carry a franchise, good. Like, and maybe we're ahead of the curve on this. I don't know. Maybe we'll be proved to be fools. We'll see. But I mean, a lot of us had the Orlando Magic as a top 3 seed in the East, and we're gonna find out if that's the case. But holy hell, is that fucker good?
Yeah, I I love Banchero. I love what Orlando's doing.
How
I
many
was I was
players
a
would you take ahead of him in like a start your franchise today thing?
ooh.
How many would you take?
Let's see. I mean, players like Shea and Luca, I feel like are givens,
Okay.
but like
It's not a very long list for
it's
me.
it's not a very long list. I mean, I feel like Tatum and Brown would have to be in
And
that
by the way,
conversation
I
too.
feel like there are times with him, like he's being forced to take bad shots because they're really not that good. Like there are like if you really watch them, like there are a lot of times he's taking a lot of bad shots and he could be a lot more efficient than he is, but like he doesn't have a Jalen Brown or he doesn't have like another motherfucker on his team. Like
Mm,
Franz Wagner's good, but like is Franz like an all NBA player? I'd say probably not. And then beyond that, it's like Suggs and I
yeah.
mean they're really not that good. But
Yeah. No,
if
they have good rotational
yeah,
pieces.
I mean, but if he really had like a team around him, oh, I couldn't imagine what he'd be putting up.
Yeah, I want to I need to look up at some point what their cap situation is because again, most of these dudes they have on really good
If you're
rookie
starting a
contracts.
team from scratch, age included, contract
Oh,
all been
Banchero's up there.
included,
Banchero is so high
oh,
up
I don't
there.
know who you're taking.
It's it's tough. So
Wembanyama, okay, got it.
yeah, yeah.
And
So if we're going like strictly on age and stuff, then yeah, Wimbenyama, Banchero, highly up there. So I was thinking of my hot take today, and this is I guess kind of a negative one, but I'm gonna come out and say it. I think my hot take overreaction for week 1 is that if the Sixers keep playing like this, they're not going to be a playoff team.
I don't think that's a hot take at all.
Well, no, just like an overreaction type deal. Like even when Embiid comes
I don't
back.
think that I don't think you're even overreacting. That team, I mean, how did like this fucking guy
Okay.
Tim Bontemps? This guy Tim Bontemps, he went on the worldwide leader of sports and he said the Philadelphia 76ers have the best big 3 in basketball. What crack could you possibly smoke to think that any team that employs Joel Embiid has the best big 3 in the NBA? I mean, how would you even I mean,
Yeah. Okay. So let me
I
let me
can't fathom why anybody would sit there and say, "Wow, Joel Embiid's a top 10 player in the league." He like you saw it during the Olympics. He's incredibly hard to play with. He's slow.
he's
He's not in
soft.
shape. I mean, he sits there in the 3-point line like he's fucking Steph Curry. He never goes out in the post and bullies people. He's constantly sitting out games. I mean, this guy is the perfect example of you got to teach them to bark when they're young. When those guys were rookies, they said, "Well, we don't care about losing games. You sit out, Joel, no problem." It's been the same ever since. Ben Simmons hasn't gotten any better. He hasn't gotten any better. That team has no mental or physical toughness at all.
Okay. All right. So I had a backup, and this may be a better like overreaction or hot take. And you may say it's also a no-brainer here. But I had this in the pocket just in case because I didn't really like the first one, but I'll always take time out of my day
Our
for
team's not a
76ers.
contender to beat the Celtics. I'm gonna laugh
No,
at them if they
no,
play them.
no. My overreaction. All right, so official overreaction. And again, you're probably going to agree with this. The cat trade ruined the Knicks' chances at sniffing a title.
I don't hate that one
See,
either.
okay, I know you're not going to
I
hate
don't
it.
hate that
I
one
know
either.
you're not going to hate it because again, we were all
We
on.
talked about. I mean, we
I know
talked
we
about
talked
this
about it in Slack.
constantly.
I know, but the first domino to fall was them, and again, it sucks because of the new CBA, but not being able to re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah.
And I know he got hurt, which is just
I
like a freak
defended the
thing.
Knicks because the dumbest thing about the CBA is why are we not being rewarded for resurrecting players? Like, okay, so the Knicks, they take this shot on Isaiah Hartenstein. They say, okay, he's a flawed player. I mean, the Rockets picked him in the first round. They never really got anything on him. Let's take a shot. And they turn him into a good player, but they have no ability to resign him. That's insane. That's insane. Whatever rule that needs to be written out, because that's garbage. But beyond that, this goes again, it goes back to the self-awareness. He's never had it. He don't got it. I mean, does anybody foul out of games more stupidly than that guy? I mean, go back to watch the opening night game. They acted like he was food. The Celtics attacked him on every fucking possession. I understood why they made the trade, but the reason why I couldn't have made the trade is how could you break up the Knicks Nova set before they even played a fucking game? Like, people can say whatever they want, but culture means everything. That team was tough. That team was mentally and physically tough. They played every fucking minute of every fucking game, and they played their balls off. And the moment you put a pussy in the room, it ruins everything. I mean, what he is.
No, I agree with you. Yes. And obviously DiVincenzo felt some sort of way when they played each other in the preseason game.
He had every right.
Yeah.
When you sign a 4-year contract, you're not sitting there and say, I'm going to get traded by the second year of it.
No.
No.
And it just, I think a lot
and he probably took a little bit less than he could have because he signed the mid-level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he probably could have demanded more.
Sure.
Especially after he played the first season with the Knicks and how good the Knicks were last year and what they were set up to be this year because of the ascension of Jalen Brunson. All they had to do was just get rid of Randall. They did that. Yes. But they brought in someone that just
or they could have just taken Mitchell Robinson's money and brought in a different center. Like, if you're gonna bring in a knucklehead like Cat, why not keep Dante and then, I don't know, bring in Ayton, bring in Time Lord, bring in one of these other centers that you want to try to resurrect? Why ruin the Nova connection and piss off the whole team just for Towns? And by the way, Tibbs hated him in Minnesota.
I know.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
He hated him.
I know. I will always know what type of person Cat is when Jimmy Butler beat the snot out of him.
The number one reason why the Knicks were good last year is because those fucking guys bled on the floor. Oh, yeah. They poured their heart and soul into it. And all they did was they put a talented guy who isn't that in the room.
100%. So, and again, I knew you would agree with that take, but I feel like that is more of a spicy overreaction to week one. They could.
I got one for you.
Okay.
I mean, Drew Holiday's a better basketball player than Damian Lillard. Like, let's call it how it is. I mean, that Bucks team's way worse.
I mean, the Bucks team is not
way worse. That Bucks team is way worse. I mean, that Bucks team, when the Celtics played, I think, what was it, 2 years ago or 3 years ago? That Bucks team was fucking good. I mean, they played defense. Everything was built around Giannis. That Bucks team, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago? The Celtics played it might have been in the semis, actually.
Yeah.
That year they went to the finals. That Bucks team was fucking good. I mean, they stink.
Yeah, they're not great right now. I'm trying to look at kind of like their entire. I think a big part of that has been a lot of their key rotational pieces have just kind of tanked down a little bit. So,
if somebody's going to put Damian Lillard in the Hall of Fame, they better put Drew Holiday in first.
Oh, Damian Lillard's a top 100 player of all time.
Well, whatever that ranking is, they better put Drew Holiday ahead of him, because there is no question. I mean, you go and just look at the aftermath of that trade. The Celtics were always a team that came up short. The Celtics were always a team that, I mean, you go back and look at some of those playoff series, it was Drew Holiday just being that little extra inch better than Marcus Smart just made the fucking difference. He was such a pain in the balls. And then they make this Damian Lillard trade, and sure, he's going to have a couple of nights where he makes some shots, but holy hell, they can't defend the same. I'll tell you that.
No, they can't. And then Middleton still being hurt is not helping them.
That's where they fucked up.
They
should have kept Holiday and moved out Middleton.
Yeah, Middleton's pretty much been hurt ever since they won the chip.
He's done.
Which is sad. Which, I mean, he's like what? Is he over 30 now?
But
Anyway,
even minus the Middleton thing, that team's way worse with that swap.
they're
Way worse.
they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. I
And part of that swap, I mean, God, if they had Grayson Allen up there, he'd make a huge difference. As crazy as that is to say, he'd make a huge difference for them.
just anybody to play defense, not be a traffic cone.
Grayson Allen's pretty good on defense.
They can have Marcus Smart. Let me see who I want off their roster.
I heard the Knicks are trying to get Marcus Smart to be that second guard off the bench.
Ooh, let me see who I want off the Knicks roster then. Let's see. Let's work something out. Bagdonis, you call your people. I'll call my people.
How do you like that little Sohan, by the way?
Sohan?
On the Spurs.
On the Spurs? I haven't really got to watch too much of the Spurs this year. Okay. So, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know how many more hot takes you want from me, other than, the Clippers. That team is fucked. That team. It's gonna take 10 years to dig out of that hole.
They just built a new $2 billion stadium. I'm
not kidding. They might stink for 10 years. They're fucked.
Yeah, it's not great. But anyway, you got anything else you want to get off your chest, Trey? I know you don't get to talk too much NBA. It's NHL season 2, so I know that takes a lot of your time. It's the heart of NFL season. Fantasy really is your and of course
all college. I'm saying is, hey, Trey had the #1 scoring team in fantasy basketball. All you fucking knuckleheads in that NBA chat saying, "Oh, Trey, you don't know ball." I don't know.
I would have beat Jeremiah beat me week 1, but I went back and looked. I would have been either I would have won or close to have won if I didn't have to set lineups. And I forgot to set my lineup my first night, and I had someone on my bench that scored 31 points. Anyway, last word.
I got one more hot take for you. Masai Ujiri, he's just not a good GM.
Yeah.
Just not a good GM. That team he's constructed, what the fuck is that?
It's pretty gross.
And they're paying out the ass. You pull up can you pull up some of the salaries that Toronto?
Yeah.
They're over the cap and they're not even good.
Let's see. Toronto Raptors.
Just pull up some of the way their salary books are constructed. This Masai Ujiri, what's he gotten right other than, he paid 10 cents on the dollar for Kawhi Leonard and the Warriors got hurt in the finals. Congratulations. Other than that, what's he gotten right? I could run that team better than him.
All right, let's see. Let's bring up.
Pull up their contracts. That team is gross, and they got nowhere to go.
I'm pulling it up. All right, let's do present, share screen, cap table. There we go.
I also regret not taking Cam Thomas in fantasy.
Cam Thomas, yeah. Okay, so here we go. Emmanuel Quickly.
Over the cap.
32 million.
$32 million
for Emmanuel Quickly.
RJ Barrett
25. Bruce Brown.
RJ Barrett 25 million to get railed in the ass by a guy. Bruce Brown, they took that deal on. Jakob Poeltl. They gave up a first round pick for Jakob Poeltl.
12.
Where's this team going? Yeah, they gave him money in free agency.
Yes, yeah.
Where's it going? And then the Barnes contract hasn't even kicked in yet.
Yeah.
Go to the following year.
Let's see. Is it not showing me?
Go to the following year when the Barnes deal kicks in.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Here, let me. Why is it not showing me next year? Here we go. Right there.
Now look at it. Negative 87 million in cap space. What is he doing? What's he trying to build here?
Golly. Why does Scotty Barnes, why is he making that much money, bro?
What was the rush? Who are you bidding against? I'm not saying Scotty Barnes is a bad player, but who are you bidding against? And especially with these new rules of the CBA, your 2 max contracts, if they're not motherfuckers, you don't got a chance. You've locked that in. He's one of your max guys now.
it's literally
What are you paying Quickly $32.5 million for?
it's literally Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly.
What's the difference between Quickly and what Dennis Schroeder can give you for $10 million?
This is gross.
Horrible.
This is gross.
Horrible.
Man, we're crapping on every fan base here at the end. We've been trying to wrap up for 10 minutes and it's just rapid fire.
What's he accomplishing with this team? Like, does he model his team? And like, what I would do as a GM, I would build some kind of computer program. If we do this, how much money do I have? If I do this, what can I do? Life is about choices at the end of the day. The choices this guy's made, he put his team into a black hole. There ain't no way you ain't getting out of this.
No, this is awful. And again, he gets but he gets a pass though because he's the GM that traded for Kawhi and they won a championship. And then he waited forever to try and trade OG Anunoby for so many first round picks.
They got nothing for Van Vliet.
Van Vliet walked, didn't he? Yeah.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Walked for nothing. That's crazy. But all right. If we're done
I think we're good.
crapping on them. I think that's gonna do it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching and listening in. Trey, thank you for coming on here for the rejuvenation of the Court is in Session podcast. Going to try and make sure that it may not be a weekly thing because NBA is a little weird like that. You can go a couple weeks without major events happening. It's really not until we get double-digit games into the season where we start to see some things or there's like big injuries. It's going to be some time before we see any trades, if we see any trades. James Harden may be traded at some point again this year. To who? Don't know. Maybe he goes back to Houston. Maybe it comes full circle. I probably wouldn't trade for him.
I probably would say no. The Slack is going insane. I'm sorry if the mic's picking that up.
Yeah, no. What's going on? And
it's all over the place.
I mean, I see like the MLB chat and then a few NBA things. But anyway, guys, thank you again so much for watching. I'm Jackson Law, your host.
We got a surprise coming too, though.
We got a surprise coming, so stay tuned for that. The surprise should be out by the time this episode comes out.
Yes. And
then in future episodes, we're going to be maybe have some content centered around this thing that could be on the horizon. So be on the lookout for that. Again, thank you guys. Trey, thank you again so much for coming on. We'll catch you guys next time.